All right, Saagar, what are we looking at?
Well, last week we had a fun segment about Google's Gemini AI image generator. By this point, you've probably seen it, but just so I can have a laugh too, let's relive that saga. The basics of it are that Google's AI generator on launch day seemed genuinely incapable of creating an image of a white person, even when it was actually called for, like with prompts about America's founding fathers, Polish soldiers in World War II. It injects Asian or black people into images of what a European family was supposed to look like. The images took over social media in a matter of hours. They quickly prompted an apology from Google, who then halted the product as it updated its software and even were shuttering it for some time. This prompts two very important questions. First, how does this happen? Second, what are the actual stakes here at play? And then, if we accept those stakes, what, if anything, should be done about it? So I'm going to answer all of those. Let's start with the first. How does something like this happen? If you watched our original segment, we got at some of the basics, that Google is a bureaucratic nightmare of an organization infected by political correctness. The way that a product like this gets shipped is that people are too afraid to say something like, hey, why can't the image generator produce white people? It would rather embarrass the company in front of the eyes of the world than flag it internally and face some problems. Quickly, after this entire fracas became to light, videos began to surface of some talks from Jen Genai. She is an Irish technology executive at Google who heads up the, quote, responsible innovation team for artificial intelligence and is responsible for programming in the social parameters at Google. Let's take a listen to some of her HR philosophy in the past.
We do work together day to day to try and advance the technology and understanding around responsible AI. So today, I won't be speaking as much from the Google perspective, but from my own experience. I have worked at Google for over 14 years. I've led about 6 different teams, mostly in the user research, the user experience area, and now in the ethical user impact area. So I'll be sharing some of my learnings from across that time, but also some of my failures and challenges. I think it's okay to talk about things that you've made mistakes in, because we will make mistakes. When we're trying to be good allies, when we're trying to be anti-racist, we will make mistakes. The point is, though, to keep trying, to keep educating yourself and getting better day to day.
Okay, not surprising. Anti-racism, DEI, HR gobbledygook speech. If you're a right-wing internet pundit, most of the analysis, it stops right there. You laugh at these woke idiots and you move on. But I would urge others to not think about AI images, which don't really matter all that much, and instead thinking about the lurking assumptions in the text models that we are missing and what a future with these hanging over our heads will look like. For that to happen, we have to close our eyes and envision a future. A future of AI does not necessarily mean replacement. It more is an altering of our total interaction with machines. Instead of typing something and getting a response, we may use our voice. Instead of asking for a definitive response, we will ask for aggregated recommendations. As we all know, good recommendations are derivative of our knowledge base and assumptions programmed in, and that is where the danger lies. As Brian Chu has deciphered in his Substack newsletter From the New World, the Google paper itself demonstrates the nefarious principles that are programmed into the model. Humans explicitly filter data fed into the Gemini to comply with the diversity standards at Google, and quote-unquote harm reduction is programmed in when the AI is considering questions. Finally, the model itself has a rule, I'm not kidding, where stereotypes should be opposed whether those stereotypes are true or not. So the stereotype rule is that one responsible for generating the ridiculous image, but it demonstrates how dangerous the language of this type itself is. The model is designed for image and text to do its best to produce false information, let's say on racial stereotypes, even if they are literally true, like in the case of skin color. You can imagine a myriad other ways that this could manifest itself for questions around affirmative action, test scores, crime statistics, and more. But this is where we reach a crossroads of how do we fix this problem. First, if we accept as a problem, I think it is. I think people of all stripes should. Yes, the examples I've highlighted are very coded right-wing, but you should be terrified of the principle of a future where information presented to you as fact is explicitly curated to comply with political correctness in vogue at the time, especially if these are models and systems through which we will solely interact with the digital world and which will have a huge impact in teaching our children of the future. Second, if we accept that problem, we have to grapple with the system design itself. Effectively, what we have here is an AI arms race. The sheer cost of servers, chips, and staff have only the biggest players right now that are OpenAI, which is backed by Microsoft. You have Google, you have Amazon, you have Meta, Probably Apple sometime in the future. There are multi-trillion dollars of money and market cap and investment with little ability right now for startup entries to meaningfully enter into the space right now. So if we accept then that there's this path to fixing this, the first preferred solution of the establishment is going to make the same mistake that we did when it came to social media. We let massive monopolies arise. And then when the problems began to arise, we created a censorship industrial complex through which the government, the NGOs, and ideology individually pressure these companies to censor their enemies. The counter argument that comes back, they say, no, don't censor us, censor our enemies. And then we enter a natural race to the bottom where government becomes all powerful and it works with just a few of these entities. The other way is to declare now that we should not repeat the same mistake of the past. The way to get there is through decentralization and open source. Currently, the reason why quote unquote woke Google, woke ChatGPT, and all these others are bad is because they are inside a controlled system. Models that are controlled by Sam Altman, the CEO of Microsoft, the DEI team at Google, the future AI team at Facebook. When you have an open source version of this, however, none of them are actually cutting edge themselves. Open source AI instead would allow for these models to become available to everyone. So instead of guessing as to whether something is programmed to be bad, you can know by simply looking at the code. It can be audited. It can then be tweaked by another. Open source would allow a first principles approach where we start from democratic grounds and we would build from there rather than allow mass centralization and jockey over who gets to pressure the oligarchs. It is genuinely vital that we act soon, or the exact same network effects that took place with Facebook and Google in the early days of the web will happen again with all the attendant massive social costs. Worst, if the AI optimists are right, it will replace a huge part of our digital life. It is the same current tech monopolies that will become stronger and more intrusive into our daily life than ever before. We will have to play catch up and only further and further get away from the dreams of the early internet, which was a more connected, a more democratically informed, empowered society rather than a subjugated one. We know what our elites would prefer, which is why we should have to take it into our own hands. That's something that I spent a lot of time kind of thinking about this.
Hey guys, obviously I had a lot of thoughts on what Saagar had to say there. So if you want to see my thoughts on this monologue and every other Saagar monologue, make sure you subscribe at breakingpoints.com.